5 years after Jason Statham first punched a giant shark, 𝐂𝐡𝐞 comes to theaters to deliver a sequel that's bigger in every aspect. There are more underwater monsters, higher stakes, and action set pieces that are even more over the top than in the Meg. Yet bigger doesn't necessarily mean better, and 𝐂𝐡𝐞 repeats some of the same mistakes that gave the Meg such a mediocre critical reception. 𝐂𝐡𝐞 picks up 6 years after the events of the first movie. Following the oceanography center of Hainan and covering the existence of megalodons beneath the thermocline at the ocean floor, the scientists involved in the discovery were tasked with expanding their research on the mysterious trench. Of course, since megalodons are still a threat, the Mana 1 Research Center invested in creating submarines capable of emitting electrical charges and exoskeletons that allow divers to walk 25,000 feet under the sea. The Hainan Center has even raised a baby megalodon of their own to study the creature's behavior and expand human knowledge about the secrets hiding in uncharted corners of the ocean. In the sequel, Statham's Jonas Taylor has fully embraced his role as the dad of 𝐷𝐼𝐼𝐼, played by Sophia Cai, now a rebellious 14-year-old that's eager to explore the trench. 𝐷𝐼𝐼𝐼's mother 𝐷𝐼𝐼𝐼, played by Li Bingbing, was written out of the sequel, so now Jonas shares his parental responsibilities with 𝐷𝐼𝐼𝐼's uncle 𝐷𝐼𝐼𝐼, played by Jing, who has taken over the research center. While far from being the action hero Jonas is, 𝐷𝐼𝐼𝐼 is still introduced in the sequel as a co-protagonist, contrasting Statham's frowning personality with a permanent smile. It's not only the good guys who got some backup for the sequel, as 𝐂𝐡𝐞 also introduces a group of mercenaries led by Montes, played by Sergio Peris-Mencheta, a villain with ties to Jonas. The new elements introduced in 𝐂𝐡𝐞 serve to expand the first movie's world and assure director Ben Wheatley has enough wiggling room to chase a threequel. Unfortunately, all the technological and human additions make the film bloated, leading to a story that stretches too thin in many simultaneous directions. While Wheatley is better equipped than the Meg's director Jon Hoeber to deliver the thrills of the franchise's horror-focused sections, 𝐂𝐡𝐞 is weaker than the first film when it comes to action, with a convoluted third act that bores more than it excites. Just as was the case in the first movie, 𝐂𝐡𝐞 dedicates the first half of its lengthy 116-minute runtime to sequences that are light on action but filled with undersea terrors. The concept of megalodons swimming free on the ocean floor is ripe for horror, serving as a spine-chilling reminder that the deep waters remain underexplored. Since the unknown is such a significant source of fear, the existence of sea monsters has haunted our dreams for centuries. The 𝐂𝐸 taps into that dread to create adrenaline-inducing chase sequences in which Jonas and his allies must outsmart a predator they don't fully understand. Their world has changed a lot in comparison to the first movie, and the Mana 1 crew are now rather used to dealing with megalodons. So, to put fear back into their hearts, Wheatley dives deeper into the trench, bringing new creatures and situations to torment Jonas. The lack of natural light in the trench sometimes gets in the way of audiences following the attacks of these new creatures. At the same time, the lack of visibility heightens the dire situation the characters are trapped in, increasing the tension of the horror-based sections of 𝐂𝐡𝐞. Without spoiling the experience, the script by Jon Hoeber, Erich Hoeber, and Dean Georgaris creates the perfect excuse to explore the dark alien world of the trench, and Wheatley uses the opportunity to showcase how good this franchise could be if it stuck to horror. However, 𝐂𝐡𝐞 goes all in action for the ending, which makes for the weakest part of this sequel. Due to the introduction of human enemies, 𝐂𝐡𝐞 uses Statham's long history as a martial artist to create many fistfights that are supposed to be electrifying. Sadly, Wheatley's close-quarters framing of these scenes, in addition to some over-editing, makes most of the action bland and hard to follow. That only gets worse in the movie's expansive third act when heroes, mercenary villains, and sea creatures converge. Lamentably, 𝐂𝐡𝐞 the Trench repeats the error of the first movie's shark-punching extravaganza by failing to embrace the campiness of its concept and trying to make something serious out of it. The sequel overextends itself with many loose threads to tie up in the explosive ending. In the middle of Jonah's final duel against the Megalodons, 𝐂𝐡𝐞 the Trench must find something for every side character to do, reveal the fate of the human villains, and still let the monsters wreak enough havoc so that the audience can grasp their destructive power. What ensues is an unreasonably long action sequence that asks the audience to focus on too many simultaneous and intertwining subplots. Adding insult to injury, 𝐂𝐡𝐞 the Trench has some of the most incompetent human villains in recent history. No one expects a franchise that struggles to give its heroes some depth to do a better job with its antagonists. Still, Monty's and his business partners are surprisingly poorly written, sucking the fun out of any scene where they appear. As such, their inflated presence in the third act only hurts the sequel, as it draws attention away from the man vs. beast spectacle. That said, 𝐂𝐡𝐞 the Trench has some goofy moments that deserve to be seen, such as Statham jousting against Megalodon sharks. It's the kind of scene that raises the question of why the sequel is still trying to invest in a blockbuster action setting when it would do so much better as pure horror or a horror comedy. In the end, 𝐂𝐡𝐞 the Trench is not much different from the first installment in the franchise, for better, and mostly worse. Okay guys, thanks for watching. Subscribe incynema, like this video, and leave your opinion in the comment section. I'll see you in the next movie review. Bye.